Hey, 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 we're back, we're black, we're brown, ambition, 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 ambition. Hey, Mandra, how you doing, girl?
I'm doing so much better now that I'm here.
Yay, welcome back in the stew or whatever. You know, we have a guest today.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Yes.
You're lovely, and you're a badass business baddie, which is hard to maintain both, so I'll give you kudos.
So I'm going to introduce Hala, our guest. Hala Taha, dubbed the podcast princess, is the host of Young and Profiting Yap podcast, frequently ranked as the #1 business and entrepreneurship podcast across all of the apps, okay? Hala is also the founder and CEO of Yap Media, a business podcast network with an award-winning social media and podcast marketing agency for top podcasters, celebrities, and CEOs. She is well known for her engaged following and influence on LinkedIn. Young and Profiting Podcast is a top 100 podcast globally, and Hala has interviewed star-studded guests from the likes of Matthew McConaughey and Alex Hormozy, I'm the worst, Deepak Chopra, we love Deepak, okay, Damon John, Seth Godin is like the man when it comes to marketing, and countless others. Her show was recognized in 2022 as a Webby honoree, and you know we love Webbies around here. And Hala has been featured in publications like Entrepreneur, Founder, and the New York Times. She is an expert on networking, marketing, social media, personal branding, side hustles, entrepreneurship, and podcasting. Woo, Hala, we call that what? Being right? Hala is also, you're a brown girl, Hala. I'm going to ask you where you're from.
I am a brown girl. Well, where I'm from is super relevant right now. I'm 100% Palestinian.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
I'm 100% first generation Palestinian. My family is still in the West Bank. So
how are you navigating this really hard time?
Oh, it's been really tough. It's been like the toughest. And I'm running such a huge company. I'm one of the few Palestinian voices. So I felt like I had this side hustle I never asked for, of just having to educate people. There's so much misinformation right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to just de-escalate, and it's just a terrible situation. So I'm trying my best, you know. Yeah, this one's tough because there's a lot of misinformation going on. There's a lot of emotions. And to be quite honest, a lot of people have literally learned history wrong, right? And so Palestinians and Arabic people and Jewish people also are, a lot of Jewish people are really aware of the actual facts and history and really against everything that's happening. There's literally apartheid in Israel. You know, this is proven by multiple human rights organizations. Even as a U.S. citizen, if I go to Palestine, I'm literally treated as an oppressed person who has to drive on separate roads, who has to go through checkpoints, somebody could kill me in Israel and literally nobody would be prosecuted. Nobody would go to jail.
Like Jim Crow.
It's crazy, right? It's literally crazy. But so many people don't know this information, and they just hear like anti-Semitism or what, like, you know, they go red and they won't even listen to what other people are saying. So it's really high stakes right now. And as a business person, I'm so lucky because I remember when I worked in corporate, I could never talk about any of this. I would, but it would be really looked down on. I still was raising money for Palestine. I always, whenever something was going on, I have to say something. There's innocent people at stake and the media is controlled, right? So I have to put myself out there. But now as an entrepreneur, I feel really lucky, you know. So many of my clients are Jewish. So many of my friends are Jewish. They know that like daily I advocate for everyone, all races, black, white, Jewish, doesn't matter. So my daily actions show that I'm a fair person who loves everyone. So it gives me a platform now to just be able to speak freely. So many of my clients are Jewish, and literally they're like, keep talking, you're educating me so much. So it feels good this time around that people are actually listening, but man, it's been a tough week. It's been a tough 10 days.
So for those people who are listening to our podcast who are business people and who want to say something but are not sure, to Mandy's point, when Black Lives Matter came out, I mean, I'm black, Mandy is black, And so I felt more educated to be like, this is what's happening because this is happening to my community. I'm well aware. But I feel like there are a lot of people who want to say something and through their business, but are afraid because I don't know the history. I don't, I've watched a couple of videos and I'm not sure. I'm like, is this the right video? How does one, where can we find education? And then two, how can we start to integrate that for those who want to speak out?
Yeah, I would say number one is seek out Palestinian voices. Go follow me on Instagram. There's so many people. Sean King is posting a lot of stuff that gives people insight of what's actually going on the other side. And you need to proactively seek out these voices because what you watch on TV and in the news is only going to give you one side. Okay. One side is literally controlled by propaganda and is basically paid for by the other side, right? And so if you want to seek out other sources, they have to be online on social media. Seek out Human Rights Watch put out a report about the apartheid. Okay. Amnesty International put out a report about the apartheid. You can read through all those reports. It will give you all the history, current and previous, that you need to understand. And then there's lots of documentaries about Gaza that you can look up and watch. So I would say seek out voices. The other thing I would say is you've got to refuse to be called an anti-Semite when you want to speak about human rights. So every post that you write, I'm not an anti-Semite. I am allowed to speak freely, and I am pro-human rights. I am pro-peace. And then start off whatever you're going to say, because that's the one thing that we need to start to isolate is that this is not a religious issue. This is a human rights issue. Yeah. There's actually a lot of Jewish people. Jewish people stormed the Capitol, Jewish Voice for Peace, If Not Now, org. All these are huge Jewish organizations that 365 days a year, even before this conflict, are trying to work towards equal human rights for Palestinians in the region, right? So there's just a lot going on. And I think the number one thing that I want from leaders, and, we weren't expecting to talk about Palestine on this podcast. So we do not need to talk about this whole time. But the number one thing that I think leaders should seriously consider is at least foster a dialogue in your business. At least recognize that the Arabic people and Palestinian people that may work for you, they're not doing well right now. They need to be treated like humans, be given humanity. Their people are literally a genocide is happening in Palestine, and we're hurt. We don't feel like our lives are valued. I think that we're in a very similar spot to how Black people felt during Black Lives Matter when everybody was screaming all lives matter. Meanwhile, we're having a genocide, right? So it's tough, and I think having open dialogue, not persecuting people for speaking out, and advocating for people to have healthy dialogues with each other. This is the only way that us as a society is going to be able to move forward, is if we actually have open dialogues. And if people start learning new information on both sides so that we have more empathy towards each other. And that takes dialogue. So not closing down comments when you put up a post, not persecuting people for speaking up. And again, just fostering this open dialogue.
Wow. And often getting out of the way of people like yourself and letting you add to the dialogue.
I don't know how many people have...
Maybe I don't need to make a statement. Maybe I need to amplify a statement that you make.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I have everybody who knows me personally, they're like, Hala, keep going. We love you, blah, blah, blah. Then I have these strangers that don't know me that are like, you're an anti-Semite. How, you're spreading misinformation and harassing me. And it's bro, I'm literally Palestinian and have lived the apartheid myself. Do not gaslight me about what is truth and what is not for me.
Yeah. And it's crazy when you come from a group that is largely oppressed and then the world tells you no, you're not. You're like, I'm sorry. I look like this every day. I know the feeling. I know what it feels like to navigate from a space of having less than for no other reason than, the origin of my birth. And so, it's been really, 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 and I just have felt hands tied because I'm I'm not really sure, because I'm not afraid to say something. It's just, I didn't feel educated enough to join the conversation, because I'm just but I know that murder is wrong no matter what side. And I know that lives have been taken on both sides. And I just feel across the board that's wrong, But I also know, from because I am Black and visibly Black, that for brown people across the world, that often our voices are more easily suppressed. I mean, I'm seeing, there was this, I just was reading this morning on like Inc.com that there's this conference in that they do every year in Europe. I think it's called like the Global or something Summit, and the CEO or the whatever the conference leader, let me see if I can find it, he said something that just basically said like like killing people is wrong and that genocide is not okay. Facebook dropped out of the conference. Google dropped out of the conference. And I was like, wait, is it wrong to say that kill? So he didn't say, it's just, hey, like, genocide is not okay. Killing people is not okay. We should have peace. Just that simple. And people are dropping out because, like, what are we saying? So it is okay to kill people? I'm confused about what the pushback is.
It's really crazy because at this point, it's not about being pro-Palestinian. It's about being anti-genocide. Yeah. Right? Because both sides, like, have done wrong things, right? Since 1948, I can give everybody a quick history lesson about why this all started, right? 1948, after World War II, Britain sent Jewish refugees from World War II to Palestine, okay? At this point, Palestinians welcomed Jewish people with open arms. They even let them in their homes, and everything was okay. A year later, the British armed Jewish people to take over Palestine. They forcibly drove out 800,000 people out of 500 villages. They killed 15,000 people. These are the descendants of the people in Gaza right now. They're refugees that were literally forcibly removed from their homes. People are still living in homes that Palestinians have the keys to their homes. Their grandmothers still have the keys to their homes. There's Jewish settlers and people in Israel who literally live in the same homes that Palestinians used to live in. They have a saying they took it fully furnished. Because they literally just moved into people's houses with their furniture, okay? And so these people are now in Gaza as refugees, and they've been blockaded for 16 years. They're not allowed to leave. They're blockaded from Egypt and Israel, not allowed to leave. And these people, Hamas, who committed the actions on October 7th, have been under blockade. Most of these people are between 17 and 37 years old. Most of either their entire lives or most of their lives, not even allowed to leave Gaza. Okay? They're trapped in an open air prison. A better name for it is a concentration camp because they committed no crime other than being Palestinian. They're not allowed to leave a city that is the size of Detroit. Okay? And it is blocked off by a wall. And that is one part of the occupied territories in Israel. The other occupied territory is the West Bank. And so the West Bank is a small piece of land that was given to the Palestinians. It is occupied. People have to drive on separate roads. Their water is rationed. All this, it's all controlled. There's checkpoints and so on. And again, if somebody gets killed in the West Bank, there's no persecution of any Israeli that did it. And people are still stealing people's homes, demolishing homes, stealing land. And they're just taking over more and more of the West Bank. They don't respect the boundaries that they gave the Palestinian people. Before this conflict, 250 people were murdered, including 47 children, by Israeli radical settlers. Nobody talks about this, right? So it was not unprovoked. It was 76 years of oppression and literally like violence ongoing to Palestinians constantly. They're basically controlled. It's like segregation, like how it was back in the day in America, right? That is what's going on in the region. And so then this Hamas attack happened. Of course, nobody condones that, but we can't help for people to be radicalized if they're literally trapped behind a wall and don't have equal rights, and their family is killed, bombed every 5 years and whatever, right? People are obviously going to become radicalized. They're not treated equally. So that's the root cause of the problem, and that's what people need to get educated on.
I can't imagine. I mean, I don't feel like this it makes me so sad and heartbroken beyond the stories that I've heard. And there are some journalists out there who are working really hard to get in touch with Palestinian voices because like electricity is not, something that you can take for granted there. A lot of places don't have them. I heard that some people are using car batteries because they have anticipated power outages before. Car batteries just to charge their phones, solar panels just to get electricity. But anyway, it's hard to communicate. But the stories that I have heard of young 20-somethings families who will just get a phone call and say, this is the Israeli army. We're letting you know there's going to be a strike. Get out now. And then they don't know if that's real or if they need to like pack up and leave. And that state of high alert, that state of fear, and I know that it's been going on for decades, as you've described. Like, that's, for me, it's never okay. And I feel like we just don't learn from our own freaking history.
Yeah. I know.
That
it's crazy.
eye for eye in a war does not equate peace.
I mean, what happened is that people came over from World War II after the Nazis and everything, and they came to Palestine like ready to do anything to just survive, and they put all that evil negativity on the Palestinians, and then just did the same thing that happened to them, literally to the Palestinians. And we had nothing to do with the Holocaust, right? So it's like, I feel that the Palestinians have taken the brunt of the Holocaust. Like, all the pain and the terror and everything has just, for 76 years, Palestinians have been unrightfully punished for something they did not do. So
I remember I went
nuts.
to Jordan earlier this year, and I just couldn't believe the separation. Like, what is the river that Jesus was baptized in? The Jordan River. Mm-hmm. And I just remember being like, wow, there's literally like this line, and they made it very clear, do not, I was in Jordan, on the Jordan side, do not get close to this line. And the river wasn't a part of the river that was very wide. It wasn't as wide as a street, like, you know? And like, I just remember thinking like, wow, like, you know, for so many people, you know, like whether you're Christian or Jewish or Muslim, Jesus is a figure in all three of those like religions, whatever that figure takes on, whether it's a prophet or savior or whatever. But I just remember thinking, how sad is it that this important, beautiful place to these three religions is radicalized, where I can be in the water that's clearly touching both sides, but I can't get close to this imaginary line that men have created. And I just thought, wow, it was such a beautiful place, Jordan, but this underlying sense of like impending violence. And I just remember thinking like, it just seemed, that part just hit me as really sad, like, yeah. So.
Yeah. I think the craziest part of all of this, Tiffany and Mandy, is the misinformation going on and like the bubble that Israelis have lived in. You know, they get their birthright paid for, the American Jewish people, right? They go over to Israel and they don't see the occupied territories. They see the few there's like 2 million Palestinians or Arab Israelis, they call them, that live in Israel that sort of have equal rights. So people teach them that, see, these are the Palestinians, they live freely with us. But it's really not the whole story. They don't show them the West Bank. They don't tell them about Gaza. They don't tell them, they're not even allowed to learn about the Nepka in like history in Israel. So they don't even know that happened. They don't know that like it started with ethnic cleansing. And so there's just all this misinformation. And essentially me having an identity of being Palestinian, it is threatening to anybody who has an Israeli identity, because it threatens their identity. So they want to act like we don't exist, or we were a lost people, or Israel was a land with no people. But in reality, we were ethnically cleansed. And even now, Gaza is being ethnically cleansed they forced 1 million people to move out of their homes, and they bombed all their homes. Now those 1 million people, they have nowhere to go. They might end up going to Egypt or Syria, and they're just, again, like moving more Palestinians out. The last thing I'll say about this is that there's 5 million Palestinians still living in the occupied territories of Palestine, which are now Israel. And there's like 7 or 8 million Israelis. It's like literally almost half the people are still Palestinian there. And there's like 10 million Palestinians outside of there that basically are refugees now, not allowed to go back. So it's a big issue. Like, there's people who are alive today that both think that they're Palestinian. There's people alive today that believe they're Israeli. We need to figure it out. We need to live in peace together.
Yeah. No, but thank you so much I think it's so great to get a perspective. This was not our intention. We brought Hala on here.
I'm so
but I'm glad for it.
I'm like, it's just so crazy. Like, what's
I want to give you like a hug. I know you're so passionate about it, as you should be, and this is the moment, and I'm so glad that we have a platform we can share with you, and that you're using your own for that. But I feel like we need a little deep breath moment. How do you?
I know.
How do you take care of yourself and your Palestinian friends? Anyone who's affected by this.
We're honestly like, it really sucks, guys. Like, there's not a lot of us. Not a lot of us with a voice. And literally, I feel like I can't even grieve. All I have to do is just spend every second I have just trying to educate and post and like battling harassment online for telling the truth. And like, thank God, honestly, like there's two communities that are helping us. The black community is helping us. Thank God. This is really the first time that like really the black community is mobilizing and supporting us. And Jewish people who know what's going on. And now we never really had other communities supporting us. And now we have these two communities really helping to amplify our voices. And it feels like maybe there'll be some real change.
Yeah. I have to say, that's where I heard about the most, which I love, because you're right. Because as coming from a population that has also often been oppressed, you get to see, you're like, wait, what's going on? And, especially black women, that's where I've seen so many, because I don't necessarily, other than you, Hala, I don't know if I know anybody else that's Palestinian, And so a lot of the information that I've gotten have been from black voices that have shared other Palestinian voices.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wait. And so as I'm reading and I'm learning, and what I'm loving is that I see a lot, especially like the black influencer women are posting for better understanding. And then you see people angry and you're like, well, she's allowed to say, I don't know much about this topic. If you can share respectfully in the comments, because I'd love to learn, because I'd love to support humanity overall. And people get really angry at that. And so that's very telling when you say, I believe that people shouldn't be murdered. And people get mad at that.
Well, I think one of the biggest polarities in all this, or like issues, is that like, it's just call a spade a spade. Palestinian lives are not valued as much as Israeli lives. And that's literally what's going on. Like 1,400 innocent Israeli civilians died, and that's terrible. And now 5,000 Palestinians have died, mostly literally children, like babies. Are just getting murdered and blown up, and everyone's like, they deserved it. It's retaliate. Like, there's like, we're defending ourselves. Defending yourself from what? From little babies who literally didn't vote for Hamas. Like, we need to be fair, and like, just all human lives need to be treated equally. And that's like, I think what all the Palestinians are crying about. We're not supporting Hamas. But we can't control Hamas. And until the occupation is over, Hamas is not going away, because they're resisting against not having freedom, right? So we just need the bloodshed to stop, and I hope it stops, because I need to focus on work.
How is your family? You said you still have family there?
I have family in the West Bank. So the West Bank, there's lots of violence and settler violence, but they're not getting bombed like Gaza is. So they're okay. Hopefully they'll be okay. But yeah, I don't have family in Gaza.
And your family, like your immediate family, are they here in the U.S.? When did you come to the U.S.?
I was born in the U.S. So my immediate family is in the U.S., but like all my dad's like brothers and sisters and stuff, and my mom's are in Palestine and some in Jordan. To your point, Tiffany, a lot of Palestinians are in Jordan.
And what's one thing? Have you visited? I'm sure you have, but when's the last time you were able to visit Palestine?
I have not been back in 20 years. Wow. I used to go every summer. We have a house there. We have land there. Yeah. It's not safe for me. Yeah. Like I said, I could get, I'm treated like a Palestinian, even though I'm a U.S. citizen once I go there. So again, I'm like, I could literally be killed by an Israeli settler and nothing would happen. And so it's just too dangerous for me. And I think I'd be targeted because I have such a big platform and stuff. I think they'd really give me a big problem.
I mean, if you could share one happy memory or like a picture of your childhood, even in Palestine, just for people to sort of show like there was a time when you were a child there and felt safe, maybe?
I always experienced the apartheid, but it definitely was safer than now. But I remember I would always like walk to the store, like they had dirt roads, right? So it's like didn't have paved roads, and all my cousins were there. They were all my age, and everybody's like really open where you can just like, I didn't ever call to go over my aunt's house. I would just like wake up, knock on her door, and she'd come make me breakfast, and then I'd go, take a walk and like check out the olive trees and the fig trees with my cousins and climb trees and just be kids, find like stray dogs and puppies and take care of them, or like little birds and take care of them and stuff like that. So we were just like regular kids, just, enjoying the outdoors and you know, and then in the meanwhile of all that, there'd be like a Israeli tank driving by, like, and that was normal, right?
I always think to myself, like, because I taught in Newark for so many years, and the area especially that I taught in sometimes can get quite violent, where there might be gunshots, there might be, and I always thought to myself, no matter where the worst of the world shows up, there's always kids, beautiful kids playing and laughing and somehow able to eke out some joy in the worst parts of the world. And that always gave me a little bit of hope, you know? That like, you know, that's why it's so heartbreaking to hear what's happening. But it's just like, it's this strange juxtaposition that like, it could really be this war-torn area and kids will find a way to play and laugh and enjoy each other in the midst of all the terribleness. They will find the little piece of joy available and then use it up the most. But so I'm glad you were able to have some good memories. I think maybe we should take like a cleansing break, right, Mandy?
Yeah.
And come back. We're gonna come back and talk a little bit about business.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna take a break, pay a couple bills. Everybody take a woosah, breathe in, breathe out, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, we are back from break. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit because Hala is like quite big time in business, right? And we want to really lean into it. And Hala, I don't know if you have time to stay with us. We also tape, we call our BAQA, where we answer questions about entrepreneurship, business, and money. So we'd love for you to maybe answer some business entrepreneurship questions.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So I mean, it's hard to switch. I'm like, my brain is like, ooh.
Yeah, I know. Let's just like, it's all good.
So 2023, I have found how that has been, I would say 80% of my friends that are in business, including myself, had a harder time in 2023 than it's been in a number of years. And it was kind of a hard business year. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that kind of like trend in your business and your business friends? And what can people do to kind of like, like, what are your suggestions, or what have you done to make sure that business still runs despite whatever happened in I don't know what happened in 2023, but I feel like there was a bit of a squeeze for most people.
Yeah, I definitely think the first half of the year was really just slow and brutal. For us, at least my company, like rocked it second half of the year. So I would say always be proactive in your sales generation. So for me, it was just trying to come up with creative ideas in order to reach, for me with the sponsorships for my network, reaching out to as many brands as possible and just coming up with unique ideas in order to get leads for our business. Obviously, every business is different. But I would say putting yourself out there, creating a personal brand, of course, is just something that I talk a lot about. And then just proactively generating leads rather than just expecting everybody to just like find you. You've got to put yourself out there, create content, and so on.
Talk about your type of business. So you're speaking about Yap Media, which is primarily a podcasting network, or do you have other types of media that
Yes.
Okay.
So we're a podcasting network where we sign on shows. We have shows like Jenna Kutcher's, Gold Digger, Amy Porterfield, John Lee Dumas. So we've got a lot of big shows, and we help people get sponsors. And we also help to grow people's shows. So that's one aspect of my business. And then I have a social media agency. We're the number one LinkedIn marketing agency and a podcast production agency as well. So I've got social clients, podcast clients, network clients.
And what about the team?
So what is... Go ahead, Mandy.
I was trying to get a picture of the team that supports you. And which arms of those businesses do you feel like has been more, contracting in this past year where you've had to like be creative?
Yeah, 100%. So I have a big team. I have about 50 people who work at Yap Media. A big team for the social side especially. And I think the most difficult thing was in the beginning of the year. We lost some social clients because everybody was basically hurting in their business. And one of the first things they're going to pull is marketing budget for something like social, right?
Yep.
So we lost a lot of clients. And unfortunately, the social side of the business is really talent heavy. And so that caused me to have to like let go of some people, which was really tough because it was nothing with their performance, but it was just because we didn't have a lot of clients. And I sort of had to consolidate and restructure the social team so that it would be more flexible as clients leave and come and so on. Now we're like fully stacked. I'm hiring again and all this stuff. But it's scary because, again, if the economy goes bad again, people are going to pull out and I'm going to have to, downsize my team. So agencies that are talent heavy are really tough in these economic times because you're always having to scale down talent, scale up talent. The network side is really scalable. I have like a 5-person team, and whether we have like 20 podcasters or 50 podcasters, it's really the same size team. So that's a little bit more scalable, and that's one of the reasons why I've been moving toward and focusing more on growing my network, because it's not so talent heavy.
Understood. Yeah, and they're not actually, exactly. They're not on your payroll necessarily. They're not W-2 workers. And is it that often the podcasts that you acquire sort of have their own production team already? They just need that additional support with ads.
We just do the sponsorships, and it's like the bigger the show, it's the same amount of work, but we get paid a lot more money because you get paid per download, per commercial, right? So if I sign on a huge show, it's the same amount of work if I sign on a small show. And so therefore, it's like a very scalable opportunity. I just have to keep signing really big shows and not necessarily having to hire. Like every time I get like 3 new clients for social, I have to stand up a whole new social team where I could hire or bring on like 20 podcasters and bring on one person to support them or something,
So Hala, you said something about being the #1 LinkedIn marketing team. So like, what does that mean? Like, what does LinkedIn marketing, what is that?
Yeah, so we're the #1 LinkedIn marketing agency. A lot of the influencers on LinkedIn, like Marshall Goldsmith, Matt Higgins, Heather Monahan, myself, it's my team actually behind the scenes running their whole LinkedIn.
Ooh,
and so that includes...
Thanks for just telling me that they ain't doing it alone, because
no.
We need to hear that.
My clients don't do anything. Like we do everything like A to Z, and that includes creating the content, posting it up, responding to comments, and then the real secret sauce on LinkedIn is the DM, direct message campaigns. And so we're doing all these like direct message campaigns 24/7, driving ROI initiatives for our clients.
What's a DM campaign? So do you have like a bot or do you have people?
So it's people, mostly virtual assistants in the Philippines. I have about 12 people in the Philippines whose full-time jobs are just DMing people on LinkedIn. And so we do all these different campaigns. Like, so for example, with my podcast, we send out about 1,000 DMs a day to entrepreneurs to listen to Young and Profiting, soliciting our new episode. And then if they respond positively, we then ask them to write us a review. So that's like one example of a DM campaign. Another one would be like, let's say one of our clients has a new book coming out. Every time they put up a post about their book, anybody who likes and comments, we then retarget in the DMs. Hey, I noticed that you liked my post about my upcoming book. I'd love for you to check out the pre-order. You can get this free thing, XYZ. Here's the link.
That's such a good tip, even for someone like me who has one admin, to like as a task. Just look at my comments. And if people like it, it sounds so simple.
Well, that's called permission-based marketing, right? So they took the first action. They're essentially raising their hand and saying, you have permission to reach out to me. If you ever reach out to anyone saying, hey, I noticed you engaged on this post, they'll never be like, screw you, you spammed me, because they took the first action. So it's a great way to establish common ground and get the conversation going.
So what does it look like to work with you? Like, does it like, because I think a lot of like, especially entrepreneurs, they're thinking like, oh, I might want to work with an agency, but I don't have any money, or like I don't have enough of a budget. What does that look like? Is it largely like sponsors pay you, so they're not paying and you kind of just split the profits? Are people really paying out of pocket? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so for my social clients, they're paying out of pocket, and we're like a white glove, award-winning social media agency, so we're not cheap. So it's usually really big CEOs, influencers, and our minimum retainer is $10,000 a month, and that's just LinkedIn, right? If you add on Instagram, it's more. So we're typically not able to service most people because we have such a high-ticket offer, and I essentially need to hire 5 people to run someone's account. It's really intensive, right?
Okay.
But I have a LinkedIn Secrets Masterclass. The next one is December 13th and 14th. And basically, I have a 2-day training where I take everyone through what I teach my team about how to hack LinkedIn. So we go over creating a personal brand, copywriting, design, and then day 2 is all about the algorithm, engagement hacks, DM campaigns. And I basically teach the same thing that I teach my team. And a lot of people will like send in their social lead or send in a couple team members, and then they're literally up to speed. And I've created influencers. I started this about a year ago, and there's been like dozens of influencers that have come out of this program.
Is that the goal? Like you're teaching them how to then have a bigger platform, grow their, and share their message.
Get engagement, increase their sales, start a personal brand. And like I said, like literally have created influencers from scratch who had no following.
How much is the 2-day workshop?
Usually we give promo codes, so it's about like $1,700. It's $2,000, and then we usually give like 30%
Dude, if you work for a company and you're in marketing, like I would take that. Like your company would pay for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People don't use their professional development funds enough. They just don't think about it. And they also may say like, oh, I just have I heard I have a cap of like 500. Well, make a case, Yeah. Make a case for it.
Well, I'm happy to give you guys a promo code, and you can get a referral fee for anybody who signs on who listens to this podcast if you want.
Maybe. We've never done that before. I'm just like, sounds good.
We haven't done that. Yeah. Okay. We're like, okay.
What's the promo code that you want?
Ooh, Brown. Or should
Brown?
be Ambition.
Brown Ambition. We usually use Brown Ambition for our...
Yeah, we usually use Brown Ambition.
Brown Ambition together? All right. If you guys want 35% off, I'll give you guys an extra 5% off. You can go to yapmedia.io/course and use code Brown Ambition.
Nice. All one word. And we'll put the link in the description.
Okay, perfect.
I love it.
You said December, when is it again?
December 13th and 14th.
It's all virtual, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all virtual, but it's me teaching live. And guys, this has gotten like 12 out of 10 raving reviews. I've had maybe 300 students go through and never had a refund. Everybody has said it's been like one of the best master classes they ever took. And so I know anyone who takes it is going to really like the class.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So what was your first, what was your kind of hero business? Like for me, it was a Budgetnista. I used to teach one-on-ones. When you first got into business, like what did that look like? What was the first thing that you started with?
Well, I had a crazy, you didn't ask anything about my background. My background is crazy, Tiffany. I had a crazy background. So I started off working at Hot 97 when I was in college for 3 years. I was Angie Martinez's assistant.
Wow. Ooh, New York.
Yeah. Unpaid assistant for 3 years. So I was essentially a glorified intern. That was like the queen of the interns at Hot 97.
You can't do that anymore.
That's illegal now. But that was like what everybody did at Hot 97 before. So I thought I was going to be the next Angie Martinez. I ended up leaving because they didn't give me a paid job, and I got upset. Me and Angie are fine now. And I started a blog site called the sororityofhiphop.com, strawberryblunt.com. I was a bad girl back then. And the podcast, the website blew up. It was like in 2010 when like blogs were super hot. We were like, up there with Rap Radar and all those other types of blogs. We almost had a show on MTV. They filmed me all summer. I was going to be the lead of a show right after they ended Jersey Shore. And I was like hosting parties at the time with this blog site and everything like this. MTV backed out 2 weeks before they were supposed to air the show. I was devastated because by then I got rejected from Hot 97. I also was Sway in the Morning's co-host for 2 weeks, and then they fired me after 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then I didn't get MTV. And so I had all these at-bats, but didn't make it. So then I got like sort of thought, all right, maybe this isn't for me. Let me go into corporate. I worked at HP, then Disney, and I started my podcast, Young and Profiting, about 4 years into my corporate career when I just felt bored and wasn't doing it for money. I was just thought, I know how to do this. Podcasts are hot now. I had all these online radio shows working on the side of Hot 97, and when I had the blog site, so I knew a lot about radio and production. I figured, okay, let me just do this. And so I started this podcast. By episode 2, I had 10 volunteers in a Slack channel. I had all these fans on LinkedIn, because I started my LinkedIn journey at this point, that would reach out to me and be like, I just want to help. Your show changed my life. And so I knew how to do all these different things: audio editing, video editing, social media, blog posting, building websites. I knew all this different marketing stuff. So I started taking these volunteers and then teaching them things. I taught one guy how to do videos, one guy how to do a website, one girl how to do my social. Then fast forward 2 years later, my show's like really big, and all the guests that are coming on my show are these rich CEOs, authors, influencers. And at the end of my show, I kept getting asked the same question. How did you build your LinkedIn? Can you do this for me? How did you grow your podcast? Can you do this for me? And I had all these volunteers, and I would always say, like, I'm so sorry. I just have a volunteer team. I've got a corporate career. This is just for fun. Until COVID hit, and I found myself with all this free time. And a couple of these guests on my show were being very persistent about being my clients. And then I just started taking my first clients. My second client, guys, was a $30,000 retainer a month. My second client. And so within 6 months, my company was already making $100,000 a month. I had 30 paid employees around the world, quit my job, and just the rest is history now. I'm like, my company's making probably almost $5 million by the end of the year this year. So it's been an awesome journey of just lots of struggle until one time it hit, and then I just kept rolling with it.
Are you the CEO? Like, do you have other executive level support alongside you?
I do. I'm definitely the CEO and founder, but I have Jason, who is one of my executives, and Kate. And so Jason helps me run the network. Kate helps me run the social media agency. I'm really in charge of, like, at this point, sales, new business. I recruit podcasters, close sponsorship deals, and close social deals. But other than that, I just have everybody doing everything else. And I just kind of think of new ideas.
It sounds like you've gotten to that nice place where instead of doing everything, you can sort of like focus on your zone of genius. Is that right? Is that how you feel?
I think one of my key reasons for being so successful is my ability to delegate. Because I had started this podcast as a side hustle. So from the start, I've been delegating to all my volunteers. So from the start, I always had a remote team and people to help me, and I'm really good at just like letting go and teaching people and then letting them take it on and elevating them,
Well, I love me some LinkedIn. Tiff, did I talk over you again? I'm sorry, queen.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that, like, so what, so you have these businesses, these kind of successful subsidiaries of the original business. Like, where do you see yourself in the next, like, 5 to 10 years? Like, what's the desired outcome for when it all shakes out?
Well, building this podcast network, we're already just 1 year in. I've signed like huge podcasts. Like I told you, I've got Jenna Kutcher, Amy Porterfield, Trent Shelton. Like, I just got all these huge names. We're crushing it. I want to be as known as like Wondery is in this space in terms of a podcast network, right? I really think that's going to happen within the next year. We're already, up there with all the major networks already. I'm writing books. So, like, personally, I'm going to put out a book in 2025, hopefully.
Ooh, what's it called?
So I don't have a name yet. It's all just getting started now. So, like, I just signed a contract and all this kind of stuff. Thank you. So going to be writing a book, going to be putting out, I'm sure I'll put out a podcast course. But really, it's just honestly growing my network. And we're the only network that has a full service social media arm. So we're not just monetizing people's podcasts. We're monetizing their YouTube. We're monetizing their social, branded content. And then we're able to execute on all of it on their behalf. So it's a really innovative approach, and there's no other networks that are really even competing with us in this space.
I want to go back to LinkedIn because I love it so much. And I have a community of women called the Mandy Moneymakers, women of color, and it's career coaching, and my specialty is negotiations. I live for the high and the thrill of a negotiation. I would love to know, though, because it seems like with LinkedIn, you're sort of maybe working with people who are using it for their businesses or for their brands. I work with women who want to use it to amplify their career and maybe build a brand. Do you have any like keys to LinkedIn that you can share? I'm curious. It sounds like you know some stuff even I don't know, so I want to learn. Like 3 keys to like maximizing LinkedIn right now that we can sort of take away.
Yeah, so 3 tips for LinkedIn. LinkedIn right now is prioritizing meaningful content, which means that you want to focus on your keywords. You want to make sure that your profile has keywords that are aligned to your niche, that people would be searching for that keyword on LinkedIn. And then you want to make sure that your posts also include those same keywords that might be found in your first connections following that have those keywords in their profile. That way, LinkedIn can basically match your post and serve them to people who have those keywords in their profile. So again, LinkedIn is looking for experts. So if you put up a post and it has a keyword, like let's say you're in real estate, you put up a post that has the real estate keyword. Your profile is validated that you're a real estate expert. You've got that keyword. You've got people who have like put skills related to real estate on your profile. And so LinkedIn can validate through their algorithms that you're an expert. Now, LinkedIn is going to serve that real estate post to other people who have real estate in their profile in their first connections. If those people engage on your post, they're going to share it with those people's followings who are likely in the same industry niche, and then you'll have more visibility, right? The second thing to note is that shares is really where it's at on LinkedIn. Every single viral action on LinkedIn is actually weighted differently. So a like, for example, is 1 point. A comment is 2 points. A share is 4 points. So if you want to go viral, you always need to optimize for shares. And that means that you want to have shareable content. Most of the shareable content is typically inspirational or motivational because they're most relatable to the broadest audience, right? Educational content is also really shareable. It's not as shareable, but it will be shared in a more targeted niche way, right? So you always want to optimize for shares. So that's the second point. And the third point is you want to understand all the different engagement hacks on LinkedIn and the little nuances. Because on LinkedIn, it's not really about your content. It's about how you post up your content. That's more important than the actual content itself. So for example, in your caption, if you're trying to go viral, you should not link out to an external third-party link because LinkedIn's goal is to keep people engaged on the platform for as long as possible. So you never want to bring them to like YouTube, for example, in the caption because LinkedIn will suppress the post. There's also all these different like other spam filters that you need to avoid, such as like chunky paragraphs. People like to skim because everybody's reading on mobile. So you want to have like line by line content. On social media, a paragraph is really 1 or 2 sentences, not 3 to 5 sentences, right? So you want to have paragraph breaks and make it more skimmable in terms of your caption and as short as possible. Also, you want to make sure, like I said, that you have got keywords in your post. You want to make sure you're using hashtags correctly. 3 hashtags max, right? So a lot of people put too many hashtags. It's not Instagram. You'll actually hurt yourself if you put too many hashtags. You shouldn't tag people who aren't going to engage on your posts. And so there's so many different like little nuances and hacks that you need to learn when it comes to LinkedIn.
Okay.
Wow.
That's some great takeaways for now. And I feel like that's always changing. So when it comes to following those shifts, and for example, I used to work in SEO marketing. So we were constantly obsessed with what Google was doing and thinking and feeling all the time. And they would like put out these reports once a year on like their EAT score, which was expertise, I forget all of them. I haven't been in there in a minute. But anyway, so where are you tracking the trends of LinkedIn? Or are you just seeing it because you're in it so much?
Well, I'm an influencer myself, and because I'm running most of the influencer accounts, I see the trends right away. We have all these social dashboards where I can see like the asset type, the engagement, and so on. And so I can see right away, for example, polls were really popular, then they became unpopular, and now they're popular again. And I can see those fluctuations, right? Hey, we put out a poll and everybody did good this week. Let's keep testing polls and see how they do, right? So I see the trends really quickly because of that and can validate things like that.
Amazing.
So I feel it's so crazy because, you know, when LinkedIn first came out, it was like, this is where you go to get a job.
Yeah.
Right? And so like what, if you're, you know, and if you're someone who thought that that's all LinkedIn could be good for, so what are the other ways that people can maximize LinkedIn? Not just coming here to look for a job, that's great, but what are the other things? Like you can grow your brand.
LinkedIn's awesome. So let me give you a stat. There's 135 million active daily users on LinkedIn that are looking at content. Guess how many people are actually creating content? What percentage of that 135 million do you guys think are creating
1%.
content?
5%?
What'd you say?
Tiffany's right.
5%.
5% of people are only creating
That's
content.
crazy.
So there's so much like room to grow. There's not a lot of competition. And if you know the engagement hacks, like if you took my class, for example, anybody who takes my class, from the first week, they're getting 300 likes on their stuff. Like they're doing really well and getting a lot of visibility because there's not a lot of competition, especially if you sort of know how to leverage the algorithm to your benefit. So you can become the dominant person in your niche on LinkedIn, and that can give you a lot of leverage. The other reason why it's especially great for business owners is because it allows you to do really great proactive lead generation. You can send out an unlimited amount of DMs. There's a couple different hacks. Like, for example, you can join a group. And on LinkedIn, you guys, if you're not really LinkedIn savvy, you may not know this, but you're only allowed to DM your first connections, right? But you can unlimitedly DM your first connections. So let's say you get up to the limit of 30,000 first connections. You can DM those 30,000 connections about 1,000 or 2,000 a day and generate leads just through those 30,000 connections. So it's always a goal to try to reach and get those 30,000 connections with people who are in your target audience for your business, right? Outside of that, you can join groups that have your target audience. And once you're in that group, you can then DM everybody in that group. So for example, when I'm soliciting my LinkedIn masterclass, I'll join all the social media groups and I'll be DMing people to join my masterclass. And I get so many leads and business folks that way. The other thing that you can do is just understand the titles that you're looking for, who typically buys from you, and then proactively invite those people to your network. And then again, DM them and start a campaign with them. So there's no other platform like that you can like search. LinkedIn has all these different search attributes. You can search by location, title, company, so many different search factors, and also by behaviors, the events they sign up for, the groups they sign up for, the people they engage with, and then you can retarget them in the DMs, which is really different from any other social platform. So when somebody comes to me for social media and they're like a coach or they have some sort of B2B business, anybody who basically offers a service that's not necessarily like a product, right? Products don't do that well on LinkedIn, but any services do. I'm always like, LinkedIn is where I'm going to get you ROI. Let's start with LinkedIn. I'll get you ROI. Then you can go on to other platforms because it's the easiest place to make money online, honestly.
It's crazy. I'm just looking at my LinkedIn because I never go on. I'm looking, I'm like, I've got 20,000 followers. I'm leaving a lot of money on the table, huh?
Yeah, we could 10x that if you want, Tiffany.
Yeah, but I'm like, I guess I haven't really thought about like, what do I send them? What do I need from them? What do I, it just would be thinking about like what's this product or the
like
service.
Your podcast would be a good one to get people to subscribe and review your podcast.
Yeah.
And then don't you have a course or something like that?
Yeah, I do. I have an online school, the Literature Academy. I mean, it's not that we don't have, it's just that I never thought about, I'm on there and, we have our, but I just, people will ask to connect and be a part of my network. And I'm just like, sure. I just looked, I was like, there's 20,000 shores. That's a lot. Yeah. What can we do here?
I use LinkedIn heavily for my business. As a career negotiation coach, it makes so much sense. And I use not as much to DM people. That's really smart. To like DM people who follow you. But a lot of leads that come into even my freebie, my negotiation scripts come from LinkedIn. And then also I think second to that is Reels. Reels are super powerful. Do you help with like other platforms as well or just LinkedIn?
Yeah, we do Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Twitter, but really it's LinkedIn and Instagram is the main focus in terms of growth.
And what I love about LinkedIn too for people, because I deal with a lot of women who are like, I don't want to learn the new TikTok dance and do the reels to get business.
Yeah,
on LinkedIn it's just words. It's like the new blog,
Yeah. And also the best performing asset is a picture and a story, right? So videos don't even work well on LinkedIn. We didn't talk about that. So videos don't even work well, and that's the most time consuming and most expensive thing to create. On LinkedIn, you just need photos and like meaningful content, educational content and stories, and you'll do great.
Now you have me looking at LinkedIn like, hey girl, you might see me a little more. Well, we want to respect your time because we want to have you on for our BAQA.
Oh, cool.
We just want to, yes, thank you so much, Hala. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open, as a Palestinian about what's happening and just giving us, educating us on which I'm sure so many of our listeners have never really known or heard before, and maybe you have, but to hear it from someone who gets to experience it, from that group, I think is really critical. So thank you for sharing your voice in that way. But also thank you for being this amazing businesswoman that was able to pivot and then share like all this insight about what does it look like to market yourself? What does it look like to grow a business? And, what does it look like to pivot when you get so many no's? It'd be so easy to give up and you didn't. So we really thank you for sharing all parts of yourself today.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Tiffany and Mandy. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. So if you want to go to Hala's, hopefully this comes out beforehand. I'm sure it will, Imani. If you want to go to Hala's, take Hala's course. Remember, it's 35% off for y'all. The link will be in the description. And Brown Ambition, all one word, to get a discount. We've never done that before, so
I'm gonna use it.
Go.
I'll see you
there. Awesome. Yay!
All right, y'all. We will see you on Friday for BAQA.